News Talk 610 AM and 102.1 FM. KVNU.
In for Bill Walter, I'm Will Feelright with your KVNU News Update. It's brought to you by Roof Rescue. And breaking news this afternoon, the Bear River Health Department has reported today that Box Elder County's mosquito abatement has found 3 mosquito traps in the area that have tested positive for West Nile virus. Now, the Bear River Health Department is advising the public to take precautions to minimize the risk of contracting West Nile virus, particularly on a weekend that's filled with many outdoor activities, including football games and the Box Elder County Fair and Rodeo. Now, the state health department said that Utah has dealt with more mosquitoes this summer than in recent memory, likely due to the abundance of snow and spring rain, which has led to more standing water for mosquitoes to breed in. Well, the primary election is coming up with a crowded group of contenders for 2 municipal council races. We'll hear about an upcoming Meet the Candidates night in just a moment. Well, that weather forecast looking at a chance of some showers and even, we could see some isolated thunderstorms with these clouds increasing this afternoon as temperatures expected to stay right around 87 for our high today. Tonight will drop into the low 60s and then sunny skies for the weekend with temperatures expected to stay right around the high 80s to low 90s. Well, the primary election is right around the corner, September 5th, and ballots have already gone out. The League of Women Voters, Cache Valley's chapter, is hosting a Meet the Candidate night that's coming up next Tuesday night at the First Presbyterian Church in Logan. Now, during KVNU's For the People show yesterday, Kendra Penry with the local chapter said they decided to focus on Logan and North Logan's council candidates due to the fact that there's a lot of them running.
For that very reason, there are so many people running, it can be very difficult to decide. So we chose to focus on Logan and North Logan because that reaches the maximum number of people in Cache Valley, though we definitely recognize there are more elections happening around the valley. And there are about, I believe it's 9 candidates running in each of those elections.
Which is a lot.
Yes, it seems so many. And we have about 6 to 7 participating in each.
Now, North Logan candidates will be taking the stage at 6 o'clock, followed by Logan candidates at 7:30. Each candidate will be given a chance to speak, followed by answering questions submitted ahead of time from their constituents. She said the league is focused on reminding people about elections that do get people to vote.
Yes, that is what we were founded on, was just making it possible for the maximum number of people to vote. And so we focus on this exact thing, educating you as a voter, whether that means on an issue that you're going to be voting on or the candidates that are coming before you. We want you to feel ready, equipped, and excited about voting because it truly matters.
Now, today is the registration deadline in order to participate in the primary election. And the Board of Education of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints announcing yesterday updated guidelines for students attending Brigham Young University at all 3 campuses and Ensign College. The updated rules focus on ecclesiastical endorsements, which students have to receive each year from their local church leader, along with the honor code and dress and grooming standards. Now, while no major changes were made to the dress and grooming standards for students, the updated rules align expectations at all church schools. The rules state that dress for men and women should be modest, neat, and clean. In addition, hair should be clean, neat, and modest, and men must be clean-shaven. Now, previously, only students at BYU, Idaho were not allowed to wear shorts, and now students at all campuses have the same rules, meaning everyone can wear modest shorts. Well, check your news coming up again at the bottom of the hour. In for Bill Walter, I'm Will Feelright with your KVNU News Update.
We start each new year filled with hope and prosperity for things to come. At Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology, it's no different. Dr. Daines is so grateful to get to call Cache Valley home and continue to offer his services to the wonderful people that live in our beautiful valley. He wants to help you start your new year off right by improving your hearing, which over the course of time will help improve your quality of life. Give them a call at 435-753-4327 or 753-HERE to schedule an appointment, or you can visit them online at CacheValleyHearing.com.
Are you a renter looking for peace of mind and affordable insurance coverage? This is Matt Robbins with Quality First Insurance. As an independent auto owner's insurance agency, we have access to multiple insurance carriers, and will give you options. We offer renters insurance policies that can be tailored to fit your needs. From protecting your personal belongings to liability coverage, Quality First has you covered. Call us today for a free quote. Auto Owners and Quality First Insurance.
Do you see yourself traveling, working part-time, or moving somewhere warmer when you retire? Your Edward Jones financial advisor wants to help make your retirement goals a reality. They can help you figure out where you are today and how to get where you expect to be. Working together, you can plan for what you want and be ready to take on anything unexpected along the way. Call one of the 7 Edward Jones branch locations in Cache Valley or go to edwardjones.com. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Summer is cruising by way too fast. It's already back to school time. Soon, you're going to start experiencing many special places and events that you won't forget, such as your first slide down Old Main Hill, attending Aggie football and basketball games, or a wild party at the How, and your first kiss on the Aggie Bowl. That might just lead to that extra special moment at Jarek's Fine Jewelry, Cache Valley's engagement ring store, where it's all about the romance. Just look for the bright green cars at 930 North Main Street.
AM radio provides always-on news, sports, talk, traffic, and weather reports. And it's also a vital service that provides important emergency information when your community needs it most. Tell Congress you need AM radio to stay in your car. Because when cell phones and the internet are down, this free emergency service is critical. Text AM to 52886 and tell Congress we need AM radio in cars.
Message and data rates may apply. You may receive up to 4 messages a month, and you may text STOP to stop.
This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters.
If you really want to support our troops, donate today at USO.org.
KVNU's For the People with Jason Williams and Bill Walter.
And it is Utah known as the fraud capital of the world. Not because we have more people committing fraud, but because we have so many people falling for it.
Going beneath the headlines and connecting you to the newsmakers.
The radio is a great way to get the word out to a lot of people in an emergency, so we thank you for your help and being a partner with us.
For the People on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM, 102.1 FM, online at 610kvnu.com, and on the KVNU mobile app.
Welcome to KVNU's For the People. It is a very, very nice Friday afternoon. You may hear a little background noise during the show today. Undergoing some pretty extensive renovations here at the station still. Those are underway out in the hallway. So if you are driving along now and listening and you hear a little bit of something in the background, it's not your imagination. That is actually a very loud compressor for the stain and paint spraying that's happening out there in the hallway. So just thought I would warn everyone about that. If you're adjusting your dials, wondering what that weird background noise is, maybe it's in your car. No, it's not. It is here at the station. And it's been quite a beautiful day, but surprisingly, we're only sitting at about 85 degrees here at the station right now, with some cooler temperatures setting in. Potential for rain, though small. It's like a 20% chance, and then it will remain kind of cooler at least until the first of the week, and then back up into the 90s. I mention that because it is pretty crowded out there on the roads right now. Coming down 4th North earlier today, it was just camp trailer after camp trailer headed up the canyon there, and that was before noon. So I can only imagine it's maybe even a little worse now. So just a reminder for everyone, there are a couple of spots of construction in the canyon, and one of those spots does, it doesn't close a lane, but it does shrink the lane a little bit there in the canyon. So watch for that. There was a message today from safety managers here in Utah. They keep a running list. The Utah Department of Public Safety and UDOT keeps a running list of different roads that are under construction that have the potential at least to be problematic on a crowded Friday afternoon or a Sunday afternoon as everybody's headed back home after the weekend. And that was one of them that was mentioned because it is a high-speed part of the canyon, one of the higher speeds, at least, through the canyon areas. And it does shrink just a little bit. And I guess there were a couple of close calls there last weekend. So that's actually on the list of roads to watch. Now, we keep an eye on this so that we can let people know, of course, what's happening out there and what you should watch out for. But, yeah, just a reminder, if you're traveling through Logan Canyon, some of those areas where traditionally you can kind of let loose and cruise a little bit as you climb up towards the summit, keep an eye out for that. Another event that took place in Logan Canyon, and this is a good reminder for all of us, it involved 3 motorcycle riders, one of them who had run out of gas, and they'd pulled off to the side of the road. That led to an extremely close call. Someone coming down the canyon, this was at night, someone coming down the canyon nearly clipped one of them standing next to the bike, one of the 3 bikes, on the corner there just before, headed down the canyon again from the summit, but just before the turnoff to Beaver Mountain. The drivers, the motorcycle riders weren't familiar enough with the canyon to know they were just about 50 yards from a right-hand turn and then a big parking lot they could have waited in. Or maybe they didn't have that option. I'm not sure. But either way, driver reported this to us. The driver who almost clipped the motorcycle rider reported this to us via email saying, just people, if you're going to pull off the side of the road, think about the conditions that you're pulling off in. And that triggered my memory because I'd seen this a couple of times myself on different roadways where someone had pulled off, maybe not an emergency. One time it was someone who'd pulled off to, and admittedly it was a beautiful sunset, but someone had pulled off to take a picture of the sunset, and they could not have picked a worse place to pull off, honestly. As far as road space, the amount of traffic, the speeds of the traffic, and I watched as they pull off the side of the road, and I thought, oh, you've got to be kidding me. I wouldn't. I couldn't do anything about it. If I had stopped, I would have just made things worse. And, so I've seen it myself is my point. And so, be conscious of your surroundings out there. And from the Utah Highway Patrol, a message for this weekend. Now, why this weekend? It's not the Labor Day weekend, not the big weekend. It's the weather. It's the weather, and, of course, people feeling that time is winding down to get out there. And so we see traditionally an uptick in travel in these last few weekends of August and the first few in September, and then everybody just kind of shifts into fall mode at that point. But Utah Department of Transportation says this weekend, the next, and the one after are 3 of the, I think, the second biggest set of weekends for highway travel in general. So a reminder as well, emergency vehicles. If you see flashing lights, state law is for you to move over, get into that. So if they have someone off the side of the road, either they're responding to an emergency or a broken down vehicle, or they've pulled someone over in a traffic stop, it is state law that you move over a lane, give them that much space, and then reduce your speed. Now, of course, reduce your speed is a vague term, so there's not a written in statute, at least, not a set amount of speed you need to reduce, but common sense should tell you the reason you're reducing your speed, of course, is you don't know what's going on. And this is something else that I saw recently on roadways right here in northern Utah. This wasn't in Cache Valley. This was in Box Elder County, but it was dusk, and there were emergency vehicle lights on the side. A highway patrol officer and an ambulance on the side of the road. And there was, as you came up on them on this roadway, there was no way to really see what was going on. The lights of the vehicle, of the law enforcement and emergency vehicles were so bright. So I slowed down quite a bit. The car in front of me didn't slow down as much as I did. Did get over, but didn't slow down enough. And it turns out that there was actually someone in the roadway that they were responding to. Now, that person was okay. This was not a fatality. But someone was actually, because of the way they had collided with a barricade, basically, they were being treated by paramedics in the lane of travel we were in. And they had lights on them and everything, so luckily the driver was able to slam on his or her brakes and miss them. But, oh man, I tensed up just watching it because I thought for sure they were going to hit the paramedics and the injured person in the roadway, despite the cones and the flashing lights and the spotlight they had on the person there on the ground. So just a good reminder, again, there was a tragedy in Colorado just last year in which crews had they pulled someone over on the side of the road, or they'd responded to a car on the side of the road, and there were children in the vehicle, and as they were getting people out, there was one of the children that got out of the car bolted, and people coming by too fast and not moving over, like state law in Colorado requires as well, actually ran that child over. The child was okay after a lengthy hospital stay, but yeah, just you don't know what you're coming up on. So a reminder from our friends at the Highway Patrol, as traffic is high this weekend, a lot of people out there on the roadways, everybody kind of in a hurry to get where they're going or get back from where they've been at the end of the weekend. Just keep in mind that these are not rules to annoy you or make your commute slower or to make you late for something. They're rules for safety. They're rules to protect you and others, and especially law enforcement and emergency responders themselves. So if you see those lights, law again here in the state of Utah is you move over and you reduce your speed, and reduce your speed enough to recognize the fact that you're not sure what you're coming up on. So just a couple of reminders there. That message from the Utah Highway Patrol, they put that out on their Facebook page in a press release today after a couple of close calls throughout northern Utah. Just want to remind everyone of these rules and why they exist. So coming up, the Utah voucher program, which is only a few months old, is already in trouble. In trouble for spending more than they were authorized to spend on fewer students than they should have been spending it on, painting a picture of a plan that was fluffing their numbers to make it look more popular than it was. And, of course, this all coming from a report from the state auditor's office. It's not something the lawmakers can question. What they do in response to this, though, is really up in the air. We'll talk about it right after this.
Are you a renter looking for peace of mind and affordable insurance coverage? This is Matt Robbins with Quality First Insurance. As an independent auto owner's insurance agency, we have access to multiple insurance carriers and will give you options. We offer renters insurance policies that can be tailored to fit your needs. From protecting your personal belongings to liability coverage, Quality First has you covered. Call us today for a free quote. Auto owners and Quality First Insurance.
Summer may be coming to an end, but we still have some hot deals for you. This is Jay with Daryl's Appliance. Our farmer-tested and approved Speed Queen washer is built tough and has a 5-year warranty. It's only $13.99. Snag a matching electric dryer to complete the set. Come see why everyone is trading in their front-load washers for these best sellers. Backed by Daryl's service and warranty team. Daryl's West on Airport Road. Open until 6 p.m. on weekdays, 5 on Saturday.
The Aggies are returning home. Beginning this season, USU football and basketball will be back on KVNU.
Touchdown, Utah State!
Listen to every game, static-free at 102 FM, 610 AM, and online at kvnutalk.com or the KVNU mobile app.
It's recovered by Utah State, and the Aggies get the touchdown.
The season begins September 2nd when Utah State travels to Iowa to face the Hawkeyes. Join us in welcoming the Aggies back to KVNU, the home again for the Aggies.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. A report out from the state auditor's office today stirring some controversy on a Friday morning, something that state lawmakers are going to have, well, honestly, no choice but to respond to in some way. The report from the state auditor's office reveals that Utah's school voucher program has been awarding more than allowed for private school tuition and has overspent all other costs as well. The Utah voucher program, the state auditor's office said, gave out scholarships that were at times $2,000 more than what students are eligible for under the voucher program here in Utah. Let's back up a little bit. So the voucher program here in Utah started a few years ago with a voucher for children with disabilities so that their parents could get taxpayer money in a backpack voucher form to help offset the costs or entirely pay for the costs of a private school, a charter school, something like that, to meet the child's needs. Children with disabilities oftentimes have, those unique needs. And so that started a few years ago. And then in the legislative session earlier this year, in what was ultimately a very cynical move, unfortunately, of lawmakers, they'd planned to give teachers a pay raise. This was not a favor to teachers. This is actually for the state because we have a teacher retention problem here in the state. People leaving for higher paying jobs in other states or leaving the profession entirely for higher paying jobs. So to stay competitive and attract teaching talent and keep teaching talent graduating from USU and University of Utah and BYU, etc., they said wages need to go up. They did a study. There was a task force convened a year ago, and that task force came back and said, to be competitive with other Western states, teacher salaries and benefits package compensation here in Utah need to increase by about $5,000 a year, at least. So lawmakers said they would do that, and then surprised everyone by writing a bill that not only did that, but created a school voucher program, something that a handful of Utah County lawmakers have just never been able to get over after voters shot down a school voucher program statewide via the ballot initiative process over a decade ago. Some lawmakers in Utah County and their predecessors still smarting over that one. I don't get it either. They're not popular in rural areas of the state, but in Utah County, it has just been such a huge thing, even though, as the report shows, not many parents are interested, it appears. But that hasn't stopped the entity created. This is a quasi-government entity, meaning that it is basically a taxpayer-funded managing company, but it is a private company. They get paid by the state and under contract to manage the school voucher program, and it looks like they have been, according to the state auditor's office, fluffing their numbers a little bit. It's clear why they would do this. If they don't spend a lot of taxpayer money, and they don't have, in addition to that, this part they can't hide, they don't have a high number of students or parents interested, then lawmakers are going to have a harder time justifying this program's existence. Now, many people warned lawmakers when they did this that it isn't something that is likely going to take off in rural parts of the state, and that seems to be the case. So it's pretty clear what the auditor's report reveals is that this entity created to manage the school voucher program here in Utah has been trying to intentionally spend more money than they are allowed to per student because they have a lack of students or a lack of interested families. The report says administrators of the program overspent, quote, significantly, well beyond what the law permits. And remember, this is taxpayer money to market and run the program in and of itself. So, again, marketing the voucher program to try and get families to sign up for the school voucher program and then running the program, they overspent there. And again, quote from the auditor's report, significantly, well beyond what the law permits. This review, again, put out today, I've linked it on our Facebook page. Utah State Auditor John Dougal said in a press release regarding this that oversights have come to light as the state is prepared to actually next year expand this voucher program. They've signaled already they plan to do that. And yet this audit from the state auditor's office shows that, again, one, not a lot of parents and families are interested outside of Utah County, and that those who have signed up, the program managers have been overpaying with taxpayer dollars to grow the budget so that they can go back to lawmakers and say, look how much we had to spend. That's a problem, to say the least. And it's a problem in two different ways. One, how did lawmakers write a law that did not contain some kind of mechanism to prevent this? No one thought of that, transparency and accountability. It took the state auditor's office to figure this out. That's a poorly written program from a legislative perspective. But in addition to that, again, this is basically a waste of taxpayer money. The report looked mostly at the current operating costs of both the Special Needs Opportunity Scholarship, because they didn't want to say school vouchers, and the new school voucher program. And for those not familiar, this program runs like a tax rebate, basically, and for now. And the state pours a lot of money into the pot each year. And again, it's open to all students, kindergarten through 12th grade. And it looks like there just aren't a lot of takers, not a lot of people interested in this. And again, fearing for their budget, fearing for their, being able to continue to exist, the managing entity the state created with this school voucher program legislation this year has been overspending your money. Get this. This was the kicker for me. So the report says it totals the Children First Education Fund spent about $75,000 more in taxpayer money than it should have just running itself. Not even the money they were doubling for some students on the vouchers themselves. And then about $37,000 more than it should have just to market themselves. That's really bad. In a response, a spokesperson for the Children First Education Fund, as lawmakers called it, said, that's incorrect. We didn't spend $37,000 marketing ourselves over budget. We only spent $18,000 marketing ourselves over budget. Either way, they acknowledged they spent taxpayer money that the law did not allow them to spend. It was very clearly spelled out in this legislation. How lawmakers respond is a mystery. They've been pretty mum about it today, but I tell you this, there's no way they can ignore this one. But it's probably going to be something that doesn't come up till the legislative session. So check it out. I've posted a link to the story and the audit itself on our Facebook page, and we'll be back after the news with KVNU's Will Feel Right.
Well, thank you, Jason. It's turning out to be one of the trendiest things at the Department of Motor Vehicle. Utah's new black and white license plate is so popular that there is now a 6 to 8 week waiting list to get one. The Utah State Tax Commissioner, John Valentine, told Fox 13 this week that people love it. The license plate has been available for years, but only for vehicles classified as vintage. But earlier this year, a new law went into effect, making it available to cars, trucks, and motorcycles as a specialty plate, with the proceeds benefiting the Utah State Historical Society. And since then, it has surged in popularity. This month alone, the DMV says there have been over 10,613 requests for the black and white plate. But there is something else the DMV would like everyone to be aware of, and that is in that same law that authorized the black and white plate to be made available to everyone, there is also a demand that vehicle owners remove any covers over their license plates. This is now a primary offense, meaning a police officer could pull you over and ticket you for a singular offense. The warning is to make certain that you take the cover off of all plates, Commissioner Valentine said. Also, as a reminder, it is an offense to drive around without a front license plate. That means that if you are pulled over for, say, speeding, an officer can notice that you don't have a front license plate and then ticket you for that in addition to the primary offense. Well, the number of Utah teenagers who have experienced a major depressive episode has doubled in the last decade. Children in the state also face mental health problems 14% higher than the national average, according to data that was given by the Kem C. Gardner Institute on Wednesday during a meeting that was held by the Commission on Education and Mental Health. Now, the findings were part of a presentation called the Utah Behavioral Health Assessment and Master Plan, which was a study about the faults that Utah currently has in its mental health system. The study began in 2022 and was conducted by interviewing over 300 healthcare providers in the state during 30 sessions. Researchers discovered major administrative issues caused primarily by a lack of healthcare access and funding. An International Overdose Awareness Day is going to be held on Thursday. It recognizes those who have died from an overdose and acknowledges the grief of the family and friends left behind. Now, the Awareness Day focuses on ways to provide support, education, and understanding of what has become a public health crisis. Maren Wright Voss with USU Extension Health and Wellness said that part of the overdose prevention is understanding its need and raising awareness, since Utah has been among the states with the highest overdose rates. Now, coming up, a luminary celebration will be held next Thursday at the Cache County Fairgrounds in Logan from 6 to 9 o'clock. Similar events will also be held throughout the state. All these clouds bringing with it a small chance of some showers and thunderstorms tonight, as temperatures have been in the high 80s today. Tonight will drop into the low 60s and then be back into the high 80s to low 90s for the weekend with mostly sunny skies. I'm Will Feelright in for Bill Walter with your KVNU News Update.
This is financial advisor Clayton McMurdy from Edward Jones bringing you the closing financial market report for Friday, August 25th. Equities finished higher on Friday as investors evaluated Fed Chair Powell's speech in search of clues around upcoming interest rate decisions. For much of the last 18 months, stock and bond markets have been driven by monetary policy actions. In 2022, that manifested in a bear market as the Fed embarked on an aggressive tightening campaign to quell spiking inflation. In 2023, the tide has turned somewhat, with markets rallying as an end to the rate hiking cycle is within sight. Markets have keyed on better-than-expected economic and earnings reports in recent months, but the Fed resumed a firm grip on the wheel today as investors parsed the annual Jackson Hole speech by Chair Powell for indications on which way central bankers are leaning on upcoming rate decisions. Powell's commentary raised the possibility that the Fed pursues another rate hike at an upcoming meeting, a reasonable message, as we don't think the Fed can put its flag firmly in one camp at this stage. Instead, we think the Fed's message from this speech was meant to be one of balance and data dependence. But put more simply, inflation is on a downward trend, supporting, in our view, a move to the sidelines with an extended pause on its policy rate. At the same time, inflation is still too high for comfort, and it would be premature for the Fed to declare victory, arguing for the Fed to keep its options open for a potential additional hike if the downward path for inflation stalls. We suspect this will add to potential market swings this year as investors adjust expectations for Fed policy. However, we think the broader takeaway is that progress on inflation is being made, supporting the case for an end of the Fed's tightening campaign, a move that to us can be accompanied by favorable equity market performance. Today, the Dow was up 248 points at 34,347. The Nasdaq closed up 127 points at 13,591. And the S&P 500 was up 29 points at 4,406. In bond markets, the 10-year Treasury yields are trading at 4.23%, and in commodity markets, the price of crude oil was up 98 cents at $80.03, and the spot price of gold was down $5.70 at $1,941.40. This has been Friday's closing financial market report, brought to you by Clayton McMurdy of Edward Jones, member SIPC, serving individual investors with personalized attention and long-term financial advice at 1309 North Main Street in Logan. If you'd like any additional information or current stock prices, please give our office a call at 435-753-0537 or visit us online at edwardjones.com.
UNI Furniture has always been here to give you great value for your money. When it comes to home furnishings, it really is always a better buy at UNI. And right now, UNI is closing out last year's model mattresses. Closeouts on new models and displays too. Memory foam, innerspring, and hybrids from a number of different name brand manufacturers. And ask UNI to show you this popular copper-infused mattress that sleeps cooler. And did you know UNI has a good selection of sheets and mattress protectors too? UNI Furniture, over 90 years in downtown Logan. There's always a better buy at UNI.
Hi, this is Sheriff Chad Jensen. As school starts, we want to remind all drivers there'll be more kids on the sidewalks and on the streets walking to school, more bikes on the streets than normal, and more cars in the school zones as the high school kids get back in session. We would encourage all drivers to slow down in the school zones and all areas surrounding the schools, pay attention to the school zones, and more importantly, be patient as more kids and there'll be different traffic patterns. Please join the Cache County Sheriff's Office in helping kids stay safe.
Summer may be coming to an end, but we still have some hot deals for you. This is Jay with Daryl's Appliance. Our farmer-tested and approved Speed Queen washer is built tough and has a 5-year warranty. It's only $13.99. Snag a matching electric dryer to complete the set. Come see why everyone is trading in their front-load washers for these best sellers. Backed by Daryl's service and warranty team. Daryl's West on Airport Road, open until 6 p.m. on weekdays, 5 on Saturday.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. For the People movie show coming up at 5 o'clock in hour 2 of the show today. We'll be talking Talk to Me, which is getting... this is one, when the trailer was released, I think most people kind of rolled their eyes, including horror movie fans. But it turns out to be one of those... It looks like to be one of those surprises like Paranormal Activity or The First Saw or... something that the trailer just couldn't do justice to, and then people see it, and buzz gets created, and it becomes a thing. That's what's happening with that horror movie. Also in theaters here in Logan, new this weekend, Blue Beetle has every bit of potential to be a huge flop. It is turning out to not be. In fact, a spoiler alert, Andy loved it. So he'll be talking about that in hour 2 as well. And then we'll talk Strays, the R-rated comedy with Will Ferrell and Jamie Foxx voicing. It's kind of like an R-rated comedy version of Homeward Bound, based on the trailer at least, is how I would describe it. So that's what we'll be talking about, the For the People movie show. We'll also spend some time on Movie Pass. They're back, and they're working. And what does that mean for the future of movies? Or does it change anything? They are trying to partner more with the big chains, and that's kind of an interesting thing to watch. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting time for movies, to say the least, over the next little bit. Listener chiming in on our topic before the news, the audit from the state auditor's office that reveals that the entity is the word the state uses, created by the school voucher bill passed this session earlier this year, has been overspending taxpayer dollars outside of what the law allows, both on individual students who have signed up for the voucher program or whose parents have signed them up, and just to run the show and to market the show. Scathing audit from the state auditor's office on this one. Lawmakers will have to respond to. They won't be able to ignore this one since they kind of rammed this down all of our throats. The public pressure is already pretty high. So, but it is, a listener chimes in and says, I'd ask the question, why did lawmakers not dot some of these I's and cross some of these T's in the bill itself? You know, why do they always, as an aftersight or when something goes wrong, think about accountability and transparency when you're spending taxpayer dollars? And a listener said, I can't believe you need to ask that question. You know exactly why they don't write that stuff in. They're hoping no one notices. I don't know if I really don't believe that because I know a lot of them personally. Or if I just don't want to believe that and don't have as good of a reason not to believe that as I think. That's kind of where I sit on that one. Sometimes I admit it does look like They think about accountability and transparency when it comes to taxpayer dollars last, because those are inconvenient things for them to have to deal with or have to write into the legislation. So they just hope nothing goes wrong, or if it does, no one will notice. It does really look that way sometimes. I think the reality, though, and again, with the qualifier, I don't know if I just really want to believe this because the alternative is worse, or if I really do believe this because I know a lot of them personally. I think what it is they are just so confident nothing will go wrong because they're so confident they've thought of everything. I think it goes back to this ego problem that our legislature has as a whole. I think that no individual lawmaker that I've met, well, a couple, Phil Lyman, Trevor Lee, a couple of them have an ego problem, but most of the legislature that I've met, even the long-termers, and even a lot of the freshmen from from the last election, do not have overinflated egos. But you get them all together for 45 days, and towards the end of the session, you'll start to see that overinflated ego I'm talking about. Don't you know who we are? Look, we're the smartest people in the state. Because we get all this information from lobbyists that you don't get. So how dare you question us? You really start to see that mentality start to bubble up towards the end of the session, especially if there are some items getting public pushback. One of the solutions to this that legislative leadership has thought of is to move all of the potentially controversial stuff to the first 2 weeks of the 45-day session. Another cynical move that kind of cuts the public out and doesn't paint a pretty picture. I think overall, our legislature needs one of two things needs to happen, I think, to correct this. So, again, we're talking about this audit that shows that the entity the state created through this legislation passed back in the first part of this year has been abusing taxpayer money to the tune of over $100,000 so far in a couple of months that it's been running. I mean, remember, the bill was passed, but this didn't get up and running until June. So June, July, and August, they've basically stolen. The auditor doesn't use that word, but he does say significantly beyond what the law allows, which is a nice way to say stolen taxpayer money. About $100,000 in just 2.5 months by this entity, the state, the bill created. And again, the funny part, the entity put out a statement in response to this audit being released today saying, look, it wasn't $37,000 we spent marketing ourselves beyond what the law allows. It was only $18,000. Even if they're right, that's still $20,000 taxpayer money the law did not allow them to spend. But I think even worse is the part where they're spending double on the students, because that is trying to inflate the numbers in a way that benefits them. Abusing taxpayer dollars and violating the law itself to spend double on the students that have signed up so they can go to the legislature and say, look how much money we had to spend. There's so much demand for school vouchers out there. Because the alternative is the reality that seems to be being painted is that it's not a super popular program, as everyone tried to tell the handful of lawmakers that just beat this drum for 14 years. That it wouldn't fly in rural areas. There's not interest there. That's the alternative, is they have to go back to lawmakers and say, look, there's not a lot of people interested in this. Maybe you should shut it down. Well, this entity doesn't want to shut it down. There are a lot of salaries on the line here, right? They just got the job in June. It's a horrible scenario with everyone having the wrong incentives to do what they do. As to the listener's remark, again implying that they do this on purpose, I really don't think they do. I truly think that they just don't think they make mistakes. And then when the mistakes pop up, they can always just kind of quietly fix it, and it never costs anyone their job. No one loses an election because of this. So the two things that I think that will fix this with our legislature, this is just the latest example. There will be more before the next session and during the next session. But the two things that will fix it, and I definitely have a preference, but one will be lawmakers losing their elections. Now, it can't just be one or two here and there. It has to be a sustained thing. So it has to be a handful this election, a handful the next election. But if voters start showing the legislature they are willing to kick people out of office rather than just blindly reelecting our incumbents every time, I think that'll send a message, and I think you'll see a legislature that is a little more careful with taxpayer money and a little more responsive to the public and the public's wishes. That's one way to fix it. The other way to fix it is a governor that is not Governor Cox or Governor Herbert before him. But if you are old enough to remember the John Huntsman years, that comes with its own problems. Huntsman was a much more in-your-face governor. He was willing to fight the legislature. He was willing to throw them under the bus when they screwed up. He was willing to blame them when they deserved to be blamed. He used the bully pulpit that is really the governor's only tool in dealing with the legislature that's gotten out of hand or unresponsive. And Governor Herbert and Governor Cox, just like him, have been unwilling to use that. They use it for other things, of course, but they haven't used it to challenge the legislature's perpetual consolidation of power. Governor Huntsman did too much, and it became contentious in a different way, where you had a legislature that was cowed and afraid to act because the governor would beat him over the head with bully pulpit every time, and he knew Huntsman was really good at it. He knew how to do it, and so he took it too far. To meet his own agendas, which we found out later was higher office. Well, I mean, I think we all could have guessed at that. But so Huntsman took it overboard in the other direction. Herbert and Cox, I think, have been too soft. They've been too willing to sit back and, let's all get along, which is great. But the product of that, one of the products of that, is what we're seeing with the legislature now, where they're kind of mad with power. And they're consolidating power. They're taking power from cities and counties and state agencies anytime they can. They're making everything they can a legislative decision. And again, it's because, you get them all together and they get all this information from lobbyists and from stakeholders and special interest groups, and they really start to believe they know more than everyone else, including the voters who reelect them every year. But again, if the voters are willing to reelect them every year, what incentive do they have to be better? So to me, that's the way you fix this. It's not that lawmakers are corrupt. It's not that they are with this voucher program, double spending in some areas, wasting taxpayer dollars in other areas in violation of the very law they just passed. I don't think they do that on purpose. I think it's just they feel this won't happen. And then when it does, if it does, and in this case it did, they know they can go back and quietly fix their mistakes. They can't get the taxpayer money back. That's spent. That $100,000 and probably more before the end of the year, 3 times that's gone. But they'll quietly fix it, and it won't happen again, and nobody will lose their job over it. Nobody will ever be held accountable for this screw up. That's the problem. I don't think it's that they're corrupt. So. What do you think? You're welcome to join me, 753-5868. Do you feel that this audit from the auditor's office revealing, basically just some really loose guidelines for the entity the bill created to spend taxpayer money on school vouchers, it looks like they've been abusing it, and they've only been operating for 2.5 months. About $120,000 of taxpayer money down the tubes, in violation of the law that actually created that entity to manage the school voucher program in the first place. A pretty nasty audit. John Dougal's website, by the way, the state auditor's website, you can download this audit and many others. I've linked to them on our Facebook page. On the other side, I've been following this one closely because it has all the potential to be a really controversial, jaw-dropping headline. Because it's basically a small town in Wyoming that has picked a fight with the LDS Church over they've picked a fight with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in a state that isn't as Mormon as Utah or as Idaho, but still a lot. And also, obviously, the church has a lot of money. They have good lawyers. This small town in Wyoming has picked a fight with them, but it's not just a childish fight. The town is trying to preserve its own identity, and it's leading to a really interesting back and forth between church attorneys and town city leaders and the mayor. It's been going on for months, and it maybe be coming to a resolution. What this is all about, why this fight began in the first place, and what the city leaders in Wyoming have to say. All of that right after this here on KVN News for the People.
Talk 610 AM, 102.1 FM, KVNU.
The season's changing and you're itching for adventure. There's a term for this time of year, Ram season. And right now, we have hometown deals on your new Ram at Heritage Auto.
Purchase a new 2023 Ram 1500 Bighorn or Laramie model and get 2.9% APR financing for 72 months when financed through Chrysler Capital.
See why this award-winning lineup of Ram trucks is the toughest and most capable ever. Come see your friends at Heritage Ram, your hometown dealer with the biggest deals.
This is Dr. Red, chiropractic physician with Red River Health and Wellness. Are you suffering with fatigue, brain fog, headaches, intestinal issues, weight gain, and you haven't been able to find any answers?
I was struggling with constantly being hot, struggling with not sleeping, being able to fall asleep, stay asleep, or even wake up the next morning. I had very high levels of inflammation and memory loss. Memory loss was the scariest part.
Red River Health and Wellness can help you.
The sleep improved, my memory's coming back. Every time I remember something, I still get really excited. I go walking every morning now, which I've never done before. I've always really wanted to be that type of person that wakes up early enough to enjoy the sunrise. I get to do that every morning now.
Our goal is to teach you and educate you so you know how to manage your condition a lot more effectively and you know what to do and what not to do for the rest of your life.
Schedule your appointment today at 855-55-RIVER. Red River Health and Wellness with offices in Logan, South Jordan, Springville, and St. George.
Call Red River today.
Critical we keep AM radio in all cars and all trucks. Hey, Sean Hannity here. More than 80 million Americans depend on AM radio. It is the backbone of the emergency alert system, and that keeps us safe in dangerous times because when cell and internet services are down, AM radio might be your only lifeline. Now text AM to the number 52886. Tell Congress that we need AM radio in our cars. Text AM to 52886 today.
Standard message and data rates apply.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. That public service announcement from Sean Hannity there reminded me, and we'll talk about this more on Monday because it's been a really interesting thing to watch play out, but there's some movement on the bill that would save AM radio. The Senate committee at the end of July passed the bill out of committee to the full Senate. The bill would require car manufacturers retain an AM radio option in all vehicle dashboards. This came after Ford announced they plan to do away with the AM radio option in their new line of vehicles coming out next year. And the bipartisan backlash began. Senator Ed Markey, a Democrat from Massachusetts, Ted Cruz from Texas, just to give you some examples of people. Joe Manchin, who's kind of center of the road, Democrat from West Virginia, and Republicans Dan Sullivan and Todd Young from Arkansas and Indiana. A whole bunch of people, 14 Republicans and 12 Democrats, signing on to this bill that would say to car manufacturers, no, it's a public safety issue. Don't do away with AM radio. And again, a Senate committee has actually passed the bill out to a full debate. And just this week, there was an announcement that had been added to a calendar for September. So fingers crossed on this. It is a big deal, and I'm not saying that. I get the same compensation whether I say this or not, but they're not forcing me to say this. AM radio is actually very important, even if you don't listen to it on a daily basis for talk radio programming or sports programming, things like that. It is. We've seen over and over again. Just now, in Hawaii and the tragedy of these fires, the flooding in California, just last week, the wildfires in Canada. AM radio has been the backbone of communication throughout these things because the first thing to happen in a lot of these natural disasters is the internet goes down. So streaming services are useless to you. Because of how it works now, usually if the internet goes down, your TV is also out. Your cable or your satellite fares a little better than cable in natural disasters, but even then, if the power's out, you're in trouble. AM radio, you can run little AM radios on batteries. They have the little crank ones. Anyway, so people were getting life-saving information about the tragedy, the situation going on around them, wildfires, floods, and more from AM radio. And this was just last week. So, yeah, I don't know what Ford was thinking, and man, have they heard it from the public, too, on this one. But it looks like Congress may actually be requiring, going forward, AM radio be an option in every vehicle. And it's so cheap for them to do this. They weren't going to save a lot of money on each car putting an AM radio option. Anyway, so back to the story out of Wyoming. I haven't talked about this on the show yet, and we'll talk more about it on Monday because it sounds like a decision will be made Monday morning by the Cody, Wyoming Planning and Zoning Board that may affect this as well. But short version of the story, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints wanted to build a temple in Cody, Wyoming. It would be about 10,000 plus square feet on a 5-acre site. Everything was a go-ahead. The Planning and Zoning Board was all on board. They'd met the city's requests as far as fencing and some investments they're going to make in road and sewer and power and things like that to connect up. And then everything came to a screeching halt, and the mayor stepped in and overrode the Planning and Zoning Board. Said, nope, we're not approving this. We're not approving an LDS temple in Cody, Wyoming. And everyone said, what? I mean, this has never happened before. What it comes down to basically is light pollution and building height ordinances of the city that would have to be changed in order to accommodate the planned design for this temple. And a resident group, residents of Cody, Wyoming, many of them LDS themselves, Terry Skinner, a spokesperson for the group, said, have risen up. They started a group, and they've started pushing back against the city and the mayor, saying, no, this is an extremely rural town, basically in the middle of nowhere, Wyoming, not to offend them, but it really is. And they said this is going to be over 100 feet high. It's going to be lit 24/7. And though, she says, though as an LDS person myself, I love to see the temple off in the background, it doesn't belong in Cody, Wyoming. The planning, this put the city in a bad spot. So the mayor overrode the Planning and Zoning Commission. The group opposed to the construction of the temple are suing. They're asking actually the state court to get involved and review the Planning and Zoning Board's decision to change ordinances to allow for the temple, which would actually be against the law in the city right now. So the ordinances would have to be changed to allow for the height plan for the temple and the lighting 24/7. Residents of the city, though, are saying the city should put this to a vote on the ballot. I don't think that's ever happened before. Monday morning, the Planning and Zoning Commission meets, and we'll have some